So words by Thich Nhat Hanh. If you are a poet, you will clearly see that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud is essential for the paper to exist. If the cloud is not here, the sheet of paper cannot be here either. So we can say that the cloud and the paper inter-are. Interbeing is a word that is not in the dictionary yet, but if we combine the prefix inter with the verb to be, we have a new verb, interbe. Without a cloud, we cannot have paper, so that we can say the cloud and the sheet of paper inter-are. If we look into this sheet of paper even more deeply, we can see the sunshine in it. If the sunshine is not there, the forest cannot grow. In fact, nothing can grow. Even we cannot grow without sunshine. And so we know that the sunshine is also in the sheet of paper. The paper and the sunshine inter-are. And if we continue to look, we can see the logger who cut the tree and brought it to the mill to be transformed into paper. And we see the wheat. We know that the logger cannot exist without his daily bread, and therefore the wheat that became his bread is also in this sheet of paper. And the logger's father and mother are in it too. When we look in this way, we can see that without all of these things, this sheet of paper cannot exist. Good morning, and welcome to the North Chapel on finally this sunny day after 3 days of rain. My name is Mary Blanton, and I'm your service coordinator today. I'm pleased to welcome Jan Hutslar, who will be giving our reflection today. Jan is the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Upper Valley in Norwich. The title of her reflection is Born of the Same Atoms. Our minister, Reverend Dr. Leon Dunkley, will be here next Sunday. Are there any visitors today? Would you be willing to stand up and introduce yourself and say where you're from?
Yes. Hi, my name is Susan Kearns, and I just moved here. I used to live in Vermont years ago, and I've been living in California for 20 years, so now I'm back.
Welcome, 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 welcome. We hope you'll sign our guest book at the back of the sanctuary that's on the table. We also have large print orders of service and hearing devices. So if you have need of any of those things and you don't have them, just raise your hand and somebody will be glad to bring them to you. So last Sunday, Ann Dean encouraged all of you to keep bidding on our auction items to help us reach our $15,000 goal. And you all did. Thanks. Thanks to you, at 6 a.m. last Monday morning, as the auction ended, the last bids came through and pushed us over $15,000. Thanks. After the service, we'll be drawing the winner of our raffle baskets. We still have a few tickets left, and so please see Diane right after the service if you would like to get into our drawing and have a chance to win. The baskets are still on the windowsill, so take a look. The charcuterie basket has no more tickets left, so that's down in the refrigerator. There'll be coffee hour after the service downstairs in the social hall, and next week, mark your calendar, we'll have a potluck after the service. And as always, there are many things happening at the North Chapel. The Rose Quartet is performing in the sanctuary next Sunday afternoon. For information about this concert and many more wonderful things happening at the North Chapel, please read your order of service or look on our website, www.northchapel.vt.org.
These opening words were written by Clint Smith. It's a poem called For the Hardest Days. Some evenings after days when the world feels like it has poured out all its despair onto me, when I am awash with burdens that rest atop my body like a burlap of jostling shadows, I find a place to watch the sunset, I dig my feet into a soil that has rebirthed itself 1,000,000 times over. I listen to the sound of leaves as they decide whether or not it is time to descend from their branches. It is hard to describe the comfort one feels in sitting with something you trust will always be there. Something you can count on to remain familiar when all else seems awry. How remarkable it is to know that so many have watched the same sun set before you. How the wind can carry pollen and drop it somewhere it has never been. How the leaves have always become the soil and then become the leaves again. How maybe we are not so different than the leaves. How maybe we are also always being reborn to be something more than we once were. How maybe that's what waking up each morning is, a reminder that we are born of the same atoms as every plant and bird and mountain and ocean around us. I invite you into a few moments of silent meditation.
I'd now like to welcome Jan Hutslar, who will be giving our reflection.
These opening words are from Ross Gay and his book, Inciting Joy. This is an excerpt from chapter 3. He says, I bristle at the idea of gardening as an act of self-sufficiency or independence. I get the premise. For instance, gardening makes us less reliant on industrial food systems that is brutal in 1,000 ways. Growing what you can't buy is awesome. Knowing where your food comes from is lovely. Sticking it to Walmart is fun, etc. But a garden, he says, a healthy garden anyway, shows us no matter how hard you try, no matter even your fleet of spaceships, you will never be self-sufficient or independent, because nothing living ever is. As the writers and ecological stewards Vandana Shiva and Robin Wall Kimmerer teach us, to be among the living, to be life, means to be in dependence, always and forever, whether you like it or not. It means whether you like it or not, you are the beneficiary of a largesse so large and so deep, you will never in one lifetime get to the bottom of it. End quote. I lay upon the recently exposed earth, cold under my body. Overhead, the sky was clear, the stars were bright. It was thoroughly quiet all around us, with an occasional call of a barred owl an eager spring peeper. I had missed the earth, finally uncovered, and the stars during so much cloudiness. I missed that feeling of being so insignificant and small while simultaneously feeling deeply alive. In that moment, that night, I felt so very much a part of everything, interconnected to all that is, a small part of this marvelous web of life. It reminded me of the Buddhist and Hindu story of Indra's net. God Indra, king of heaven, hangs a wondrous, vast net, much like a spider's web, in intricacy and loveliness. It stretches out indefinitely in all directions. At each node or crossing point of the net hangs a single glittering jewel. Since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. The sparkling jewels hang there suspended and supported by the net, glittering like stars, dazzling to behold. The polished surface of each gem reflects all the other jewels in the net, and the reflection itself is infinite. Each person, animal, river, tree, mosquito, etc., is a sparkling jewel in Indra's net, intimately connected with everything else in the universe. Whatever happens to one jewel affects the entire net. You cannot damage one strand of the web that is the universe without injuring all others in it, whether the injury is known or unknown. Our Unitarian Universalist beliefs honor the interdependent web of all existence with reverence for the great web of life, and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. That wording comes directly from the UUA's new proposed Article 2. And I am so glad they use the words reverence and humility. Reverence as an attitude of awe, wonder, devotion, a willingness to respect all things and see them as sacred. Humility, says Nelson Mandela, is the most important quality to embody. He says to be humble keeps you from putting yourself above others. Humility is the simple quality of believing that you have more to learn. To be among the living, to be life, means to be in dependence. We must dispel the myth of self-reliance, independence, rugged individualism, because we are deeply and inextricably interconnected, interdependent. And I don't mean this in some abstract New Age idea of oneness. I am talking about practical advice for living as a person of faith. Acknowledging that every person, being, animal, plant, river, hill, meadow, parking lot, sidewalk, beer can on the side of the road is related to me, is made of the same atoms. We are all kin. We must care for our kin. Knowing this, I have to ask myself, how do I live this truth? How do I live knowing that I am connected to every other living thing, every other thing? How is my behavior and attitude altered by knowing we are dependent on each other? We need each other in small and large ways. How does this knowing inform my interaction with a stranger? My interaction with a loved one who makes me so mad sometimes? In my choices about what to buy, what to consume, how I spend my money and my time. How am I called to be? being one with a beautiful mountain lake or a sky full of stars or with the Dalai Lama or with Mary Oliver makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. But being interrelated to that beer can or the guy who pulled out in front of me and then drove 10 miles under the speed limit, or the criminal who used to live in the White House and is determined to again, well, that doesn't feel quite so good, that interrelationship. How do we live? How do we honor our dependence on each other with reverence and humility, our kinship with each other? I recently read an article in Orion magazine called "Kinship is a Verb." One of the contributors said, using kin as a verb reminds us that kin and these relationships are always alive. It's a movement and a flow, it's a process, kind of like how the wind and the air flow, or the water getting back to a river is kinning. So kin as a verb is permeable and movable, and it requires of us some action or intention. Kinning requires of us some action or intention. And that brings us back to those questions. How do we live knowing this kinship, remembering that every sparkling jewel in Indra's net and the way we each reflect every other's jewel's aliveness and insignificance with reverence and humility. Richard Blanco inspires action and intention in his poem, Declaration of Interdependence. It goes like this. Such has been the patient sufferance. We are a mother's bread, instant potatoes, milk at the checkout line. We are her 3 children pleading for bubble gum and their father. We're the 3 minutes she steals to page through a tabloid, needing to believe even Starr's lives are joyful and bruised. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. We are her second job, serving an executive absorbed in his Wall Street Journal at a sidewalk cafe, shadowed by skyscrapers. We are the shadows of the fortune he won and the family he lost. We are his loss and the lost. We're a father in a coal town who can't mine a life anymore because too much and too little has happened for too long. A history of repeated injuries and usurpations. We're the grit of his main street's blacked out windows and graffitied truths. We're a street in another town lined with royal palms. At home with a Peace Corps couple who collect African art. We are their dinner party talk of wines, wielded picket signs, and burned draft cards. We are what they know. It's time to do more than read the New York Times, buy fair trade coffee and organic corn. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress. We are the farmer who grew the corn, who plows into his couch as worn as his back by the end of the day. We are his TV set, blaring news, having everything and nothing to do with the field dust in his eyes, or his son nested in the ache of his arms. We are his son. We are a black teenager who drove too fast or too slow, talked too much or too little, moved too quickly or not quick enough. We are the blast of the bullet leaving the gun. were the guilt and the grief of the cop who wished he hadn't shot. We mutually pledge in each other our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. We are the dead, we are the living amid the flicker of vigil candlelight. We are in a dim cell with an inmate reading Dostoevsky. We are his crime, his sentence, his amends. We're the mending of ourselves and others. We're a Buddha serving soup in a shelter alongside a stockbroker. We are each other's shelter and hope. A widow's 50 cents and a collection plate, and a golfer's $10,000 pledge for a cure. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We are the cure for hatred caused by despair. We are the good morning of a bus driver who remembers our name, the tattooed man who gives up his seat on the subway. We are every door held open with a smile when we look into each other's eyes, the way we behold the moon. We are the moon. We are the promise of one people, one breath, declaring to one another, I see you, I need you, I am you. So many.